verse 18 through 22. I must have hit something. Yeah. Ruth 1, 18 through 22. And at the part that we jump into this text, it is in the midst of transition, massive transition, soul-altering transition. And I don't give you the upper story, but I will explain it as we go. At the moment that we read the 18th verse, it has come after Naomi has rejected Ruth and told her to go home. Like Orpah, just go, just go. But Ruth would not go. I know I don't dress like you, and I know I haven't worshiped your God, and I know that I don't look like you, and I'm from a different culture, and I'm a Moabitess, I cannot deny that, but I cannot leave you because you have so impacted my life that I tell you what, thy God shall be my God, and that's conversion. Thy God shall be my God, thy people shall be my people. Where thou livest, I shall live, and when thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. This is a lifelong commitment. This is not a fling. This is not a passing fancy. This is not a result of a mood I'm in. I'm going to die where you die. I'm going to live where you live. I'm going to worship the God you worship. The Lord do so to me and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. Till death do us part. I'm your girl. I got your back. I'm not just your daughter-in-law. I wasn't just with you for your son. I'm with you in good times and bad times. When she saw that she was steadfast minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her, said, okay. So they too went. Oh, that's so beautiful. So they too went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass when they would come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. And they said, is this Naomi? Naomi, is this Naomi? Is this Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord had brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Notice that they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. The word that the Lord told me to give to you is this famine won't last. This famine won't last. I don't know what kind of famine you've been in, what you've been going through, what's been happening in your life, what kind of upheaval emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, attitudinally has been going on in your life. Maybe the lack of love, maybe the lack of friendship, maybe the lack of attention, maybe the lack of purpose, but whatever famine it is that has turned you into somebody else and disfigured you and rearranged you and discombobulated you and disoriented you. This is a prophetic word from God. It's not, the message is not a sermon, it's a word from God. God said, this famine will not last. Let us pray. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on us today as we stand before the people as your oracle. Speak through me. I know I'm not much, but speak it through me. Speak through me in such a profound and clear and didactic way that hell is horrified, that demons flee, that hearts are converted and chains are shattered. I believe you for victory. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Yeah, let's go to work. When you read the first chapter or the first few chapters of the Book of Ruth, the first one in particular, is where all the drama unfolds and unravels. It is difficult to determine between Ruth, who married Naomi's son, thereby her daughter-in-law, and Naomi, who is the mother, and Orpah, who married her other son, are the main characters in the story. Elimelech, her husband, and then her two sons are also paramount in the story. But to me, the real catalyst, the driving factor, the paramount character in the story is not the embodiment of flesh. It is the famine that drives the narrative. It is the famine that drives the narrative. Say that with me. It is the famine that drives the narrative. You will notice, I just came from a meeting and we were talking about how people are migrating to the south now. And when I was younger, they were migrating to the north. All the southern people were going to the north for the good jobs because the famine drives the narrative. People will pick up and move when they get hungry. They will leave areas, cities, communities, even family, friends, communities, traditions when they get hungry. The famine is the star of the text. The famine is the star of the text because Naomi's husband decides to move his whole family away from Bethlehem to go to Moab, where they don't have the same customs, the same traditions, the same clothing, the same apparel. They don't necessarily speak the same language, to take on a new identity. Do you know how hard it is to go someplace out on a limb and take on a new identity and forsake all that you are accustomed to and to have to blend into an atmosphere where you are a foreigner? But the famine drives the narrative, because if you get hungry enough, you'll change your skirt, you'll change your blouse, you'll change your hair, you'll learn another language. If you get hungry enough, the famine here drives the narrative. And often when God wants to move us, he sends a famine. It may not always be for food. It may not always be for water. It may be for affection or validation or attention, but the famine drives the narrative, and the famine in the Book of Ruth plays a crucial role in really setting the stage for the story. It occurs during the time of the judges, so it precedes the kings. Israel had judges before they had kings because God wanted them to understand that he was their king. They ended up with kings by default because they admired the heathens so much that they wanted kings. But originally God wanted to be their king, therefore making them a theocracy because God was their king. America claims to be a Christian country, which you could not be a Christian country and a democracy or even a republic. You would be a theocracy. Your constitution would be the Bible. And though it is a nation filled with Christians, it is not a Christian nation. And every now and then it reminds us that it is not. I'm gonna leave that alone. This is a time of instability and trouble and mayhem and frequent hardships in Israel. It's a time, it's a season of distress because of the famine has pushed them to the breaking point. They are not leaving because they have left their faith or left their traditions or left their culture or are ashamed of their culture. The famine has made them have to become an immigrant. The famine has got people at the border. The famine has got people trying to climb through barbed wire. The famine, if there's enough famine where you are, it will make you desperate enough to slither on the ground past snakes and to swim with alligators to get to something that you can have a better, the chance at a better life will drive you to put your life at risk because the famine drives the narrative. The famine prompts Elimelech, a man from Bethlehem in Judah, to leave, to pull up stakes, to leave his relatives and his friends where he's respected and appreciated, and to leave his homeland with his wife Naomi and his two sons Mahlon and Chilion, and head out for a place to make it home that wasn't really home, a nearby country of Moab. And there they come to meet their wives. And Naomi, as a woman, as a mother, went out full. She has her sons, she has her husband, she has her God, she has her identity, she has everything. But that is not really the highlight of the story. There are many things that I want you to see, because eventually you will come to understand the famine is significant for several reasons. The famine is significant because it drove them out. But I want to pause and challenge you not to be too quick to relocate every time things get hard. It led them to Moab, true enough, and while there Elimelech dies, and his sons marry Moabite women, one of whom is Ruth, and she is to be significant in this story, but Ruth would have never met Naomi's son if it were not for the famine. Naomi loses her husband, and as a parent, I can't even imagine this. As a husband, I can't even imagine it, much less as a parent. She lost both her sons. It is natural eventually to lose your parents. That doesn't make it less painful, but it is natural. But when you start losing, it is possible to lose your spouse because you're the same age and the same era, and you get old, you grow old together if you're lucky enough to do that. Maybe your second one, your third one, whatever you work out. But to lose your children is a pain I pray I never know. To bury my child. And so we have to give Naomi some grace for being a little moody in this text, because she has lost everything that mattered to her. I could come in and tell my wife almost anything. As long as me and the kids was okay, we'll figure the rest of it out. Okay? So for Naomi, she has lost her world. She says, I went out full and I came back empty, and I've got absolutely nothing. And here comes Orpah and Ruth behind her trying to follow her, and she just doesn't want to be bothered. Have you ever come to a point in your life where you've been through so many famines that you're just sick of people? You know they didn't cause the famine, but you're just sick of them. By the time Naomi hears that her homeland has food again and she's ready to come back, there's no sons in her hands, no grandsons playing at her feet, no husband by her side. She is alone. At the point of being alone, she even wants to be alone. she kisses Orpah goodbye, which I'm told that's where Oprah got her name from. They misspelled it. Goodbye, Orpah. Okay. And she tells Ruth, go home, girl. She said, it's too late for me to be productive. If I got married today and had another son, could you wait for him? There are some moments that cannot be repeated. Y'all don't hear me. I want you to hear the weight of what I'm saying. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, because the enemy knows that if he can kill, steal, or destroy a moment, that moment may not be recreated ever again. And for all of your murmuring and complaining about what's going on in the world, don't miss a moment. Don't miss a moment. Because you don't always get a do-over. You don't always get another chance. I wish somebody experienced would back me up in here. You cannot roll back the clock of time and do it over again. This was a unique moment, and so now she has to let go of the moment. Because she is a survivor, but being a survivor sounds better than it feels. The fact that you survived and what you loved didn't takes the joy out of being a survivor. The fact that you survived doesn't mean that you didn't suffer loss, but nobody comforts the survivor. They mourn the dead, but they don't comfort the survivor, because they think that the survivor means you feel victorious. But it is possible for you to be a survivor and still not be victorious, because it costs you so much. It costs you so much. It costs you so much to survive that sometimes you have to recover from survivorship. And most of the time you have to recover alone, because nobody would suspect that the survivor is suffering too. Naomi is suffering and she's in agony, and her daughter-in-law Ruth chooses to accompany her, but the truth of the matter is she really wants to be alone. Because sometimes when you are hurting bad enough, you lose trust. You don't want to love again. Because if I love again, I risk losing again. And I haven't recovered from the last bruise. And for you to make me love you only to lose you is to reopen a wound that I'm still trying to stitch shut. Because you don't stitch these wounds shut in a week or two. You don't fix this in a year or 6 months. Sometimes it takes you a decade to survive the loss of what you had to give up to get to the next level. And so give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some room to recover. Give yourself the space to be honest, honestly angry, honestly tired, honestly frustrated, honestly at the end of your rope, honestly at the place that no, y'all going back. I can't do this. I cannot be who I used to be again. I'm gonna get into this. The problem with great blessings of any kind, whether it's the blessing of knowledge or the blessing of finances or the blessing of influence or just the blessing of life itself, is that you cannot always do it again. And if you're not careful, you will push yourself to the limit, trying to be who people expect you to be, rather than to recreate yourself and find out that there is another version of yourself that may even supersede the former version of yourself, if you have the courage to stop trying to do encores, and maybe you're not boxing anymore, maybe you're coaching now, but maybe you're better in the coaching role than you were in the boxing role. And instead of standing out there at 70 trying to box somebody just so that you know how to do it, but just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you're supposed to do it. And it occurs to me that the famine that drove them to Moab is still present in another form. The famine that drove them to Moab was a natural famine, but now she's having a familiar famine. Her family is gone. And it occurs to me that losing your family is worse than losing loaves of bread. Oh, did I tell you that Bethlehem means house of bread? And so there was no bread when she left Bethlehem. There was no food when she left, but she had family. It's possible to have famine in one area and have abundance in another area. And so when you can't use what you don't have, you lean on what you do have. And she had family, but now the famine has progressed and taken on another form, and now she's lost family too. And so there is a famine in Naomi's heart. There is a famine in Moab. And there is a famine in Ruth's womb. All three are desolate. All three are without life. All three are without fruit. And so when I look at the text, it is a class in survival for those of us who are in famine. That's what it is. It's a class in survival for those of us who are in famine. When I look at the text, it reminds me not to always think that just because Bethlehem was in a famine when I left, that it's going to be in a famine when I get back. That the place that was dried up can become the place of abundance, and the place that was the place of abundance can become dried up. And so you don't fall in love with places, persons, and things as if they cannot change, because the one who cursed you yesterday can bless you tomorrow, and the one who blesses you today will turn around and cut your throat tomorrow. So you got to be fluid in the moment. You got to be ready for change in the moment. You got to be prepared to deal with whatever you got to deal with, and stop defining people by how you met them, because people change. Jobs change, situations change, seasons change, time changes. And it's changed. Everything is changed. And everything is changed. And the one thing we hate is change. I hate change. Don't change on me. Just don't change. Don't say it if you're going to change it next month. Don't make me believe it. Don't make me trust you. Don't make me open my heart. Don't do that to me. If you're going to be dry, just go ahead and be dry so I can put you in the dry box. But don't tell me that knowing you is going to give me water. Don't start it if you're not going to finish it. And so the text is about famines, it's about surviving, it's about persevering, it's about enduring, it's about aging. It's about accepting that you have nothing to prove. That just because you don't do what you used to do in a previous season doesn't mean that you can't rediscover new parts of yourself that have not been touched. And don't allow people to lock you in a box and make you have to be something that you were in the spring, that you don't have to be that in the winter, that the winter can be just as beautiful as the spring if you stop craving spring and start noticing winter. Every season has its own beauty. Y'all don't hear me. I'm sorry. Let me go sit down. I'm talking to the wrong people. Every season has its own beauty. As soon as you give up on insisting on what was, you can start to enjoy what is. But you are stuck in trying to recreate what used to be. And even if you meet a man today, Naomi, by the time your sons are grown, Ruth will be an old woman. And so you cannot fix her barrenness by your behavior. Stop trying to fix what you didn't break. I want you to get the substance. I'm moving slow, but I want you to get the substance out of the fact that just because a season changes doesn't mean your life is over. Just because you move into another dimension or a new place or a new area doesn't mean your life is over. Just because you didn't hit the spot by 30 doesn't mean your life is over. Just because you thought you'd be further along by 40 doesn't mean your life is over. Just because you thought that you would own your own place by 50 and now you're 57 and you're still staying in an apartment in a garage above your mama's house does not mean your life is over. Flip to my page on the people that God did great things in their lives, in the middle of their lives. I want to give you some reminders. I want to remind you that Harlan Sanders was an old man in his 60s when he started his first Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the first one failed. The first one failed, and he fought back, and he got up, and he became famous, and now you got KFC all over the world. But it started not at 20. It didn't start at 30. It didn't hit till 65. Up until then, he worked menial, everyday, ordinary jobs, and he didn't hit his stride. He didn't get his second wind till he turned 65. So stop planning on the nursing home and get yourself up out the bed and get yourself together. Or then there was Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc was in his 50s when he partnered with two brothers called the McDonald's brothers and started the fast food empire that exists today. He started it in his 50s. It takes time to grow up. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying? It takes time to grow up. It takes time to know yourself, to come into yourself, to come into your fullness. As good as you are now, you're not nearly as good as you're going to be later. Nowhere close. Nowhere close. Nowhere close, because life's experiences accrues in equity and value. Because you lose your sons and you lose this and you lose that, for everything God takes, God gives. God gives you something that you couldn't have bought in the store. A resilience, a tenacity, a fight, a drive, a work. You have to understand that God will use the famine to bless you. Laura Ingalls Wilder, the author of the famous story Little House on the Prairie series. Wilder published her first book in her mid-60s. After many years of other occupations, she wrote Little House on the Prairie in the middle of her 60s. And there you are at 40 mad. Talking about, why hadn't it happened for me? They just don't appreciate me. They don't respect me. They just, shut up! Enjoy what 40 gives. Enjoy what 30 gives. Enjoy it and stop trying to control the famine. Because when he squeezes you over here, he's pushing you over there. And you're going from faith to faith and from glory to glory. I wish I had a witness in this room. There are people in history like Grandma Moses, Anna Mary Robertson Moses, a renowned folk artist. Grandma Moses began painting in earnest in her 70s. After arthritis made it difficult to continue her prior work in embroidery, she started painting when she was arthritic. Ronald Reagan, though known earlier as an actor living in California, ends up going into politics, became the United States president at 69, leading the country through a transformative period in his 70s. And you out at 50? You done at 50, Naomi? Naomi has said to them, don't call me Naomi. By the way, Naomi means my joy. Because when they birthed her, they looked at her and said, my joy. And they loved her. And she said, don't call me my joy anymore. Call me Mara, which means bitterness. Because I went out full and I came home empty. Naomi has decided that if she cannot be who she used to be, she's nobody. She's not worth following. She's not worth supporting. She's not worth loving. She's not worth company. Because when you fall in love with how you saw yourself, it stops you from seeing what you are going to become out of what you lost in your life. I don't know who, I'm prophesying to somebody. I don't know who it is, but you've been in love with a season. You've been in love with a moment in time. And it's just as foolish as going down to the ocean and sticking your foot in the water and coming back 10 years later and stick your foot in the water at the same place and expecting it to be the same water. That's why you got to enjoy everything when you do it. That's why you got to love everybody when you love them. That's why you got to say it. That's why you got to feel it. That's why you got to know it. That's why you got to taste it, because you blink and it's gone and you don't get a do-over. So stop going out to the cemetery having conversations with people who can't hear you and missing the people who desperately need you to talk to them. Your soul is in a famine. So what we find is a Naomi, oh God, I wish I had time. What we find is a Naomi who has responded to pain and trauma by isolation. So she pushes everybody away who would love her, because isolation is the way we punish ourselves for not feeling valuable enough. And we use words like introvert. No, you're not an introvert. You're punishing yourself because you either don't trust the people or think yourself worthy of the love they offer. Oh, you're fine giving it. Because as long as you're giving it, you're in control. So Naomi says to Ruth, don't follow me. I'm empty. Never even noticing that even empty, she has converted Ruth to serving Yahweh. Even hurting and in pain, she has made a young Moabitess girl want to follow her God, even in her confusion and her agony and her distress, that she would change the entire narrative of the Bible. Not at the height of her life, but at the worst of her life, she becomes better when it's bad than she ever was when it was good, and she don't even know it. If Naomi had not brought Ruth back to Bethlehem, the rest of the scriptures could not have been written. If Naomi had not brought Ruth to Bethlehem, the house of bread, in the middle of the famine, if she had not brought Ruth to Bethlehem, Ruth would have never met Boaz. And if Ruth had never met Boaz, she couldn't have had Obed. And if Obed had not been born, there couldn't have been Jesse. And if there were no Jesse, there couldn't have been David. And David being born in Bethlehem was a prophecy of Jesus being born in Bethlehem. And all of it depended on her going through this famine, and understand that you may be in pain, but sometimes you're better in pain than you are in power, because pain brings stuff out of you. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm going to drive this thing till I drive it home. There you are, bitter, and none of your feelings are telling you the truth. A feeling is not an evaluation of worth. She felt bitter. She was angry with God. She said, the Lord hath dealt bitterly with me. And all the while she's fussing about what God didn't give her, she's winning people to God. And Ruth is walking behind her, thy God should be my God. And she's talking to somebody who is angry with God. And the truth of the matter is, there are some people in this room, no matter how you clap and skip, you're angry with God. Because of the famine in your life. But I got news for you. Something is about to happen. I'm going to try that again. Something is about to happen. And you've been praying about the famine, but you've been praying about the wrong stuff. Whether you're talking about the famine that was in Bethlehem, or the famine that was in your heart, or the famine that was in Ruth's womb, you must understand the one thing that all three famines had in common is that none of them lasted. Hey, I feel like preaching in here. Can I preach a minute? Before I leave the stage, I want you to know that every famine has a birthday, and every famine has a death day. That if God started it, God will finish it. I want you to know that these light afflictions, which are but for a moment, work for us a far more exceeding weighting glory. For we look not at the things that are seen, for the things that are seen are temporal. Y'all don't hear me. The things that are seen are temporal, but the things that are not seen are eternal. Slap 5